Hump Day.
We have,
love a good hump.
Right?
Have somebody from South Florida Gay News with us.
Yes. We have the wonderful Dale
from
Stine.
Dale Stine from
Who's the other
My
guy?
Gay List.
Who's the other guy? I don't know.
And we have Adam Gentle.
I thought he was
who
like
is
FBI or
running-
something.
No, he looks like an FBI agent.
Right?
but
Doesn't
he's
he?
running for Congress.
You know I still have that warrant, right?
You know,
Adam?
and,
It might be undercover. We might just not know it.
and then we have the criminal Faye. What?
Straight out of prison.
Right. Straight out of Compton.
Straight out of Compton. Straight out of North Miami. That's how I roll.
Straight out of Graceland.
All right. Well, we have lots of news to talk about tonight.
It's going to be a good
And
show.
it's coming right now. Welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday, October 13th, 2021, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Hello and thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the Happening Out television network, Hotspots Magazine, and WMEG Events. Hotspots Magazine is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and merged, we bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. First, let's welcome anchor Faye. What? She's a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Faye's Fur Family, and is the anchor of the travel news show, Happening Out Travel. Also, make sure to catch the Faye What Show, Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Good evening, Faye.
Good evening, my favorite homos. How is everyone? I finally finished Squid Game. Thank God, my Lord.
Did you love it?
Oh, I loved it. I can't lie. I was addicted. Let's welcome our next anchor. He's Dale Stine. You guys know him. He received a master's degree from the world-famous Juilliard School. He's a well-known photographer and is famous for his photographs of internationally acclaimed DJs, producers, drag personas, politicos, business people, and entertainers. He is presently the director of music ministry at the best church in the whole entire world, Unity on the Bay. And the second. I do love Sunshine Cathedral. I love you guys because you are my queer church all the time. Dale Stine is also the moderator of South Florida's largest LGBTQ plus Facebook group. If you're not a part of it, get on it right now. It's called Miami Gay List. He also served on Miami Beach LGBTQ Advisory Committee for the full 8-year term. Yes. And he also now sits on the city's Human Rights Committee. Good evening, Dale.
Thank you, Faye, for that very energetic introduction.
And loud. Loud.
I'm a little
Had a lot of
loud.
coffee before the show.
Lots of coffee.
Okay, well, let's welcome anchor Adam Gentle. A Michigan boy with a background in performance art, he has worked the globe, helping communities and bringing integration through art and education. A graduate of George Washington University Law School and also Columbia University, I've just learned. He worked pro bono in Washington, D.C., helping low-income renters. He helped low-income renters. Most importantly, Adam is running for Congress in the 25th District, right here in Florida. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening. Happy to be here. So now let's welcome John Hayden. John is a general assignment reporter for SFGN, covering events and political developments directly affecting Florida's LGBTQ community. Before joining SFGN, he had spent the last 13 years as an entertainment journalist, interviewing the biggest stars in TV, movies, and music, even American Idol finals, and red carpet premieres. John now lives in Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale area, looks forward to continuing to cover our community. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. Here are the bullet points for tonight's queer news stories, Wednesday, October 13th.
Well, let's begin by queering up the USA. Texas removes suicide hotline from LGBTQ plus site because it could hurt the GOP governor's reelection. The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, DFPS, quietly removed information intended to help prevent LGBTQ plus youth suicide from one of its websites after Governor Greg Abbott, of course the Republican governor, was criticized by a primary opponent for promoting transgender sexual policies to Texas youth. That's an exact quote. The site for Texas Youth Connection, part of DFPS, used to have a page called Gender Identity and Sexual Orientation that had links to various LGBTQ plus youth resources, including a suicide prevention hotline and educational materials. In August, Don Huffins, who is challenging Abbott in the Republican primary, criticized the site in a video posted to Twitter. Watch this.
Hello, Patriots. Well, I've got some new news here that you need to know about. Governor Abbott's political appointees that are running the Department of Family and Protective Services have put out, and it's been on their website, some very disturbing information about our youth. They are promoting transgender sexual policies to Texas youth. You can go to their website, but it's gender identity and sexual orientation. And let me just read this to you. They're talking about helping empower and celebrate lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, allied, non-heterosexual behavior, and it goes on and on. I mean, really? This is Texas. These are not Texas values. These are not Republican Party values, but these are obviously Greg Abbott's values.
I used to love Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. You know how we love everything bigger. Texas toast. Love Texas toast.
Oh, you were talking about toast.
Country music. One of my favorite music genres is country music. But now I just don't even know what to say about this. This is awful. It's dangerous.
It
it's
makes
scary.
me so
and
angry. My blood boils at all these things that are going on in Texas. And I feel really bad for the many friends I have who live in Austin, for example, and Houston, a few big cities, but I have so many friends in Austin, and they're beside themselves with what's going on in that state.
I think what's troubling here is where Texas goes, the country seems to follow. It starts in Texas, then it happens in Florida. And this is a trope we've seen before, making villains out of the most vulnerable amongst us.
Yeah, that's the sad.
Yep.
And it exposes just the hypocrisy of the GOP to say they're pro-life. No, they're pro-life until you exit the womb. And then good luck avoiding guns, good luck avoiding food insecurity, good luck having a roof over your head and not living out of a car. They just do not care if it doesn't make a headline or oppress somebody not exactly like them.
I have a couple of thoughts. First off, who, when you hear "Hello, Patriots," doesn't get a bit of PTSD? Because as you're complimented for being an American patriot, something really horrible next is going to come out of somebody's mouth. The second thing is what we're watching in this example of Huffines is exactly what Republicans are going to face in the midterms. Because even if you are a moderately balanced Republican, you could be ejected because some kind of Trump fanatical, like Huffines, is going to come in and say, look, youth can commit suicide if they're LGBT, and that's fine, because our values don't support them. And as a result, there will be a significant number of the most radical in the Republican Party that will say, yep, that's A-OK because we're patriots. And Abbott could lose the election in Texas for governor. And that's what these Republicans are facing. They've made their own beds to deal with the Trump crazy that is going on. And Abbott is one of the people that potentially could be adversely affected about it. But we're the cannon fodder in what we're watching and what is going to go on. It's very sad.
Let's hear some good news, all right? Let's queer up health. Biden signs off on Colorado's historic expansion of trans-related health coverage. Many private health insurance plans in Colorado will soon be required to cover gender-affirming care for transgender patients under a landmark approval granted by the Biden administration. For the first time, plans purchased on the state's individual and small group markets, meaning employers with less than 100 workers, will be required to cover transition-related care. The change would take effect on January 1st, 2023. According to state figures, the small group and individual health insurance market covers about 20% of people living in Colorado. The treatments will include hormone therapy, genital reconstruction, face tightening, facial bone remodeling, and other services.
Well, the placement of this story right after the previous one is fantastic. Because if you're going to have to move to another state, it sure as hell ain't going to be Texas. And in Colorado, if you're a pothead, you're like really, that's
you're in a happy place.
Lots of stuff looking good for Colorado.
Right. But yeah,
they've got a governor that is LGBT who got married.
It's fantastic.
You go Colorado.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Inspirational.
Go ahead.
No, I hope other states follow suit. Just like Mr. Gentle was saying about following the wrong state's suit. I hope that Florida does something like this for our trans brothers and sisters.
Well,
I know the face that you gave me. Dale is like, yeah, sure, Faye. Don't wait for it.
With Jack Stannis in the office.
I think that this is an example of how you can work to change attitudes. Remember, it was 1992 when Bill Clinton was elected, but Colorado passed this vicious anti-gay amendment to their constitution. Not even talking about gay marriage. I'm just talking about just our access to the ability to access the legal system. Over the course of 20, 30 years, well, really 20 years, they've been with us for about 10 years now, they've been the Democrat standard to follow in the West. And I think that hopefully Florida will follow Colorado and less Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I really look forward to the day when this isn't a headline, when having basic fundamental health care for all of us isn't news.
Yeah.
So I don't want to kill the program.
We get out of well, we'll always have plenty of things.
Don't
to
worry.
talk
There's
about.
plenty of people that hate us. Don't worry.
Right. But your observation is a bullseye when we get out of culture war, and then we can turn to the real issues. If you win your seat for Congress, hopefully when good,
yes.
Absolutely, when you win your seat for Congress, you're not dealing with the silliness of the culture war stuff that we're facing. We've got big issues to face. There's one other really good news on this story that's far outside of Colorado. Last night, when this was reported at 8:07 on Fox News, Tucker Carlson's head exploded.
He never looked more handsome. Next, let's hear up entertainment. A new film chronicles the fight to remove homosexuality's mental disorder label. Watch this.
It is very hard nowadays to have any awareness of how different the world was for gay people.
Homosexuality is, in fact, a mental illness.
Thousands of gay people went to psychiatrists to be cured.
Activism lit the spark.
This was an uprising.
Take the damning label of sickness away from us.
I'm not going to allow you to dictate to me about who I am.
In May 1970, Gary Allender and fellow members of the activist group the Berkeley Gay Liberation Front attended, or as Allender later recounted, invaded the National Convention of the American Psychiatric Association in San Francisco. The activists' purpose was clear. They planned to confront the more than 10,000 psychiatrists present about the APA's designation of homosexuality as a mental illness. A new documentary called Cured, that premiered Monday on PBS for National Coming Out Day, chronicles this years-long campaign, ultimately which led to the APA's removal of homosexuality from its manual of mental illnesses in 1973.
Wow.
That is not that long ago, guys.
Right?
That is just about 50 years ago that we were considered mentally ill. I know that a lot of us aren't that stable, me included, but that's crazy.
You know what's really crazy too is that I actually came fully out of the closet in 1975, which means that just 2 years prior, I would have been, not to say that I don't have mental issues now, but I mean, it's scary to think that just 2 years prior, I could have been diagnosed as mentally ill.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to overstate what a watershed moment that is in the trajectory of gay rights, to remove that stigma. A huge moment. And I'm so happy that this documentary is
And
there.
I do remember it. I remember that being enacted. I remember it in my lifetime very well.
And can we give kudos to PBS for playing this documentary? That's that's trailblazing for them as well. There's a Sesame Street crew, you know? I mean, that's awesome.
And let's remember that thousands of people, this was used as an excuse to put us, just lock us away without having to go through the judicial system. Thousands of us were committed over decades. And in some Eastern European democracies, or more like autocracies, this is still used to imprison people. So we have it good here, but let's not forget, there's still work to be done around the rest of the world.
It's interesting, to your note, let's put a timeline on this. 1969 Stonewall takes place in June 28th, 1969. 3 years, basically 3.5 years later, this March invasion, whatever you want to call it, of the American Psychiatric Association takes place. It took a long time to be able to turn the ship in terms of the interpretation. You look at interpretation from the medical field today, like the American Medical Association. The American Medical Association and the American Psychiatric Association have come out and said that conversion therapy is dangerous and that there is absolutely no issue in terms of being gay or definitions of homosexuality. It is a complete 360 turn from 1973. And it's just unfortunate that the ship went on for so long. It created, via church and religion frequently, and early medical science, it created an attitude that has taken us decades and decades and decades to overcome. But we continue to march on, right?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
And with that, let's queer up politics. How the rainbow wave of LGBTQ plus politicians is changing the political landscape. Since the LGBTQ plus rights movement started, our community has been active in politics. Elaine Noble was the first openly LGBTQ plus candidate elected to state-level position when she joined the Massachusetts House of Representatives in 1974. Harvey Milk made headlines in 1978 when he was elected in San Francisco, and now in the past year, the U.S. has seen over 1,000 LGBTQ plus individuals elected to office, and our issues are not only getting a spotlight, but we are positioned finally to help the most marginalized in our community.
I'm so glad that Adam had this story, right? Like, what a perfect person to relay this, you know, because, I mean, we're always doing stories about how we're not that represented in government, you know, and now the story is saying that we're going towards the right direction. Are we anywhere near close where we should be, Adam?
That's a great question, and I think this is a rosy picture, not to go all doom and gloom on us here, but it would take another 28,000 elected officials just for us to be on parity with our share of the population.
Oh, that hurt.
So we have a long road ahead of us.
Oh, wow. That hurt. That hurt, right? Didn't that hurt? Like,
It hurt. And, you know, I've heard that number repeatedly. It's based on the 7% of population. And we need 27,000 more elected officials. Adam Gentle in Congress, Mayor Pete as President of the United States, and all the way down to school boards and city commissioners,
mayors,
anyone. So Adam, what could we do? What could we do for us to someday see that in our lifetime?
Absolutely. I mean, I think here in Florida, we have a really special situation. Even though we're known as a liberal state and a welcoming place for the LGBT community, Florida has never sent an out LGBTQ elected official to Washington, D.C. So, I mean, that's not why I'm running for Congress, but my campaign is certainly an opportunity to make history. And anyone that's able to support the campaign today, if you go to www.adamfordemocracy.com, if everyone watching this broadcast were to make a $25 contribution today, we could win this campaign and be able to spend our energy registering voters, engaging with people, and fighting the disinformation and misinformation that is plaguing our discourse today.
Excellent. Excellent.
We need to have those seats filled by our people.
Yeah.
Yes, we absolutely do. I'm glad you're for democracy.
Absolutely.
All right, let's queer up South Florida gay news. South Florida gay news, homophobia takes the spotlight in sports. Two incidents are making headlines this week in the sports world, and, of course, Florida are at the root of both. In this week's SFGN, on stands and online tomorrow, I look at both incidents. A reporter for WLRN brought back his own tweet this week from a decade ago, where he seems to tell the LGBTQ plus community that the word faggot shouldn't offend them. He was echoing a comment made by an NBA player that shouted at a Miami Heat fan during a game. Now, this reporter says he's grown as a human and that it was before he was a journalist. And in a late email exchange with me, he laid out his case very well. And quite honestly, I'll take him at his word. And we can all choose to do that or not. But you know who you can't take at their word? Jon Gruden. Because he says one thing in public and does a 180 in private. Emails revealed by the New York Times this week, the now former head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders called the NFL commissioner a faggot and a pussy. When Michael Sam became the first openly gay man drafted into the league, he wrote about queers and railed against ESPN when it honored Caitlyn Jenner. Ironically, the first and only gay player who's out, Carl Nassib, plays for the Las Vegas Raiders, Gruden's former team. Unlike his ugly emails, Gruden was publicly supportive when Nassib came out over the summer. You can get the full story in this week's SFGN on stands tomorrow.
So this Gruden guy's not that smart, right? I mean, I hate sports, but it doesn't sound too smart to me. You know, I can tell you anything I want to your face, but I'm never going to email you that same info so you can have proof.
He is pretty high on the douche factor.
Something I've learned as a lawyer is never write anything in an email that you don't want your grandmother to read. Mm-hmm. But thank God that something like this gets a man thrown out today without hesitation.
You know, to be honest with you, that's the heart of, I think, what this story is all about. I'm a diehard Tampa Bay fan. In the 70s, when the franchise was extended to Tampa, I sat in many of those games where we were 0-27. I vividly, painfully remember it, all the way to the Super Bowl that Jon Gruden led, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it's heartful to consider that first, probably much more is going to come out of this story, but most importantly of all, he resigns within 1 hour of that New York Times story. And I think that that is super positive because he has to own the words and actions that John has reported in his story in South Florida Gay News. And he decided within 1 hour, I'm not going to fight this because it is a no-win situation. That is good for us and our community because he is recognizing Jon Gruden is one of the most powerful names in the NFL sports history. And he basically bows out after 1 hour. So that's good for our community, and it's good as a reflection that American value of the majority of Americans is saying this is not acceptable actions and words. And I think that that's really at the heart of John's story this week in South Florida Gay News.
It's the gay mafia. We'll get rid of all of you people.
We will not hesitate to cut a bitch.
And with that, that is our that is our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus every news broadcast since January 6th of 2020. Tonight we report that as of today, more than 3,180,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 51,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 403 million vaccination doses have been administered in the United States.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Watch this.
Hi, my name is Misty Eyes, and I'm the Director of Transgender Services, Women's Services, and Education Training at SunServe. And Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we finished tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News. In LGBTQ plus Flash News, Gay Christmas is Halloween. And we are going to present the top 25 sexiest monsters in history. Tonight, number 25 to 21. Fear and arousal are very closely linked. It's science. And we embrace science here. Since movies were created, people have brought their dates to them, horror movies, in an effort to cuddle up with the ones they were with. Now, with so many forms of entertainment focusing on horror, we're going to spend a few episodes of Queer News tonight focusing on some of the sexiest monsters in media. Here are our first 5 picks. Join us nightly, by the way, as we count down to number 1. Tonight, number 25, you can't talk about hot villains without talking about the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. Muscles, smoke, a flaming whip. Calm down. Sounds like a kinky hot time to all of us. Number 24, Venom. Big, muscular, and he really wants to be inside you. He can also change, that was a good joke, he can change the size of various body parts at will. Number 23, Lady Dimitrescu. This classy pinup from the video game Resident Evil Village has style, body class, a 9.5 foot height, and claws. Yeah, I was reading that wrong. There, right? Yeah, and claws that will put you in your place. Yes, mistress. Number 22, the Iron Bull from Dragon Age Inquisition. The chiseled chin, the eye patch, the massive bulging muscles, add on his leather harness and tattoos, and he's not the only horny one in the room. Number 21, King Shark. I love this character. He's big, burly, and just continues to prove that a dad bod can be hot. He's probably great at cuddling too, unless he's in the mood for a post-coitus snack. Don't be in that position. Make sure to watch all next week as we continue our Halloween countdown of the hottest monsters, each episode of Queer News Tonight. I cannot wait on who is number 1. I have absolutely no idea who the show is going to pick.
I have absolutely no idea who any of those people are, so I guess I'm just a little busy actually having sex.
I am not so burdened. I will go 100% for King Shark. I will grab that dorsal fin and just go.
Okay. Oh, wow. Well, I don't know. I don't know any of them either, Faye, but I got to tell you that's the kind of monster mash I could really get into, you know.
Ooh, really? That was like a 70s remix, Monster Mash? Is that what you were doing there?
I don't know. The Monster Mash. Isn't it?
You do it actually quite well. Yeah. Like the voice was right on, I think. I have to go with Faye what? I have no idea who any of those people are, so I'm safe.
No, wait, Adam Gentle, running for Congress, just said one of his favorite monsters was Faye what?
Hey, I don't think that's what he said, and production do not put that together, all right? LGBTQ plus Flash News. Dutch royals can marry same-sex partner without giving up crown. In the country that first legalized gay marriage, the Dutch crown princess has the right to marry a person of any gender without giving up her right to the throne, the Prime Minister said on Tuesday. Crown Princess Catarina Amalia, 17, has not made any comments on the matter, and little is known of her personal life. The question arose after recently published books argued that the country's rules exclude the possibility of a same-sex royal couple. But Prime Minister Mark Rutte said times have changed since one of his predecessors last addressed the issue in 2000. In a letter to Parliament, Rutte said, quote, "The government believes that the heir can also marry a person of the same sex. The cabinet therefore does not see that an heir to the throne or the king should abdicate if he or she would like to marry a partner of the same sex," end quote. Well, at 17 years old, she's a little young for me, but you never know.
You want to be a princess.
You know I do, real bad. I'll do it.
You are a princess. No, more queens and more tiaras. I am 100% here for it.
And I love how progressive the Dutch always are with everything. They're always on the cutting edge of all policies and lifetime and culture. Love them.
As a big fan of democracy here, I didn't know we were still doing this whole king and queen or queen and queen thing. So good for them.
Right. This is the most unnewsworthy story that we've ever done at Queer News Tonight. But I'm really happy that she can marry if she's lesbian. I'm really happy about that.
We've done worse stories now.
Yeah, okay. LGBTQ plus flash news. GOP lawmakers and Fox News lose it when Superman comes out. A Republican lawmaker tried to attack Hollywood for making Superman bisexual in an upcoming comic book, but she didn't quite make the statement she intended. Arizona Senator Wendy Rogers tweeted on Monday, National Coming Out Day, by the way, quote, Superman loves Lois Lane, period. Hollywood is trying to make Superman gay, and he is not, end quote. Not only did she apparently miss the point that this version of Superman is the son of Clark Kent, she also renamed Lois, well, the male name, Lewis. Well, you know, maybe she's into she's already making Lois trans.
Yeah,
that's what's happening there, you know.
Growing up, Superman was always gay for me, so doesn't really seem like new news.
That is so true. You know what's interesting about this story? Laura Ingraham on Fox News, I kid you not, did an entire block on this story. And the person that she interviewed said he's probably, or she hoped, Superman did not come down with a venereal disease. Said that out loud on Fox News.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wendy girl, you're right. You're totally right. It's the gay agenda. We're coming for you.
GOP getting incest wrong. Are we sure this is Arizona and not like Mississippi?
Yeah, I know.
Wow. So that's today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the groups that you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve your attention, and they deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines, and we need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out television network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters and anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Faye What? Dale Stine, Adam Gentle, and John Hayden. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we go, we have one last story to share.
Now, let's queer up gay culture. Important advice from one of America's leading LGBTQ attorneys on what you need to know. Here's the story. Recently, we sat down with Elizabeth Schwartz. She is the co-chair for the National Board of Directors for SAGE and was on the council that helped fight for marriage equality in the state of Florida. She explains what legal advice every LGBTQ plus person should follow to help with legal protections in everyday life and in relationships. Let's watch this.
Well, next on Queer News Tonight, we focus on the legal rights and needs for the LGBTQ plus community. This evening, we welcome the famous attorney here in South Florida, Elizabeth Schwartz. Practicing law since 1997, she is a nationally recognized advocate for the legal rights of the LGBTQ plus community. Author of the book, Before I Do, A Legal Guide to Marriage, Gay, and Otherwise. Her firm equally works with straight and gay clients in matters of family law, estate planning, and probate, and more. And she has been at the forefront of providing crucial legal protections for LGBT families. She is also a legal expert for gestational carriers, egg and sperm donors, and is the author of LGBT Issues in Surrogacy. She provides training for trans name change and trans legal education training, plus LGBTQ plus competency seminars for other lawyers and judges. Elizabeth has represented both ends of the gay marriage spectrum. Elizabeth served as counsel on a victorious case challenging Florida's marriage ban brought by the National Center for Lesbian Rights on behalf of 6 same-sex couples and members of Equality Florida Institute seeking the right to marry, and also handled the first divorce for a same-sex couple in Florida. Both were victories for our community. This evening, we welcome Elizabeth Schwartz to Queer News Tonight. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
You have an amazing resume. I know you're going to blush. I'm going to make you blush, but my goodness, from a legal standpoint, you touch so many of the important linchpins of what is important to our community. Because the reason I was fascinated to talk to you, much of the LGBTQ community doesn't realize that our rights expansion falls in a legal framework. And so the attorneys that think through the process to get us to equal rights and defend our rights is via attorneys. And you're one of those linchpins right at the heart of that. How does that feel to be that person?
Well, thanks. I mean, I think you're right. Many of the gains in our community have happened in courtrooms and in legislative environments. But I think it's equally true, if not more true, that your audience has forced that change. I mean, in other words, conversations at kitchen tables and in classrooms and at the sidelines of soccer fields. I mean, that's how hearts and minds are changed in sort of day-to-day reality. So I think sometimes we overly focus on these flashpoints of exciting court victories, because it is amazing, and of course it's heartbreaking when we have setbacks, but I think the true champions of our movement are just folks who are telling their truths and living their authentic lives each day. By the way, happy Coming Out Day.
Well, that's right, National Coming Out Day. And one of the things that I think is important, let's start with one of those flashpoints, which is marriage. Tell us about, just kind of in a soundbite, what your experience of going through marriage equality and the fight in the courts and our ultimate victory in the Supreme Court decision. What are your thoughts?
It was an amazing journey, really sort of the privilege of a lifetime to be able to serve with the National Center for Lesbian Rights and Equality Florida as counsel on one of those victorious cases, as you mentioned. It's I have to be honest, I never really cared too much about marriage and the institution. It seemed like this sort of bougie hetero thing that, like, why do we want that? And why can't we just sort of decouple all of the rights for, so that all kinds of family constellations could protect one another. But certainly, as you mentioned, as a lawyer who handles divorce, I've seen how just the devastating impact of not having any rights. And as someone who's handled a lot of estate planning and probate, what happens when you don't have your legal rights documented. It could be devastating. You don't get to visit your partner in the hospital, you don't get to inherit, and you certainly can, on dissolution, lose everything. So that's how I sort of realized, like, this is something that's really important to fight for.
And after some time has gone by since that victory and those big victories, do you still feel it's kind of bougie and a hetero thing?
Well, I mean, I do think that some of the greatest perks of being queer are like that we don't all have to color inside the same lines. So we don't have to all be in these sort of monogamous relationships where we have children and like serve in the military and all these things. So we should have the right to do all of those things. But I hope we don't lose our unique, like our creative way that we are as a community. But no, listen, I married my wife after 11 years together, and with absolute joy to have that commitment memorialized in that way.
I wanted, part of your action was with Equality Florida. They do amazing things in the advocacy of our community. One of the things that we talk about a lot at Queer News Tonight and at Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine is that our rights are not fundamentally first and always in gay marriage. And when we talk about why it's important to vote in presidential elections or school board elections, frequently we hear from our community, well, we got gay marriage and that's it. We're kind of done. And so being a principal voice and general on that battlefield, what do you think about LGBT's reaction when they say that?
It is infuriating. It is infuriating. I mean, marriage was one stop in the one battle that we won in the war towards full lived equality. I mean, marriage helps some people with some things, but it's not the end all be all. And of course, what we're seeing is the backlash to that win, and the backlash attacking the most vulnerable among us, principally trans people, principally trans youth, principally trans women of color. I mean, we're seeing what happens when you give a community some rights and the folks in power don't like it. I mean, we have so much more work to do, and there are so many ways in which we need the full engagement of everyone in our community, of everyone in your audience. They need to understand that marriage is fantastic for lots of us for some things. And there are plenty of folks who are single, who are coloring outside the lines in a million other ways, and marriage doesn't help them. It's critical. We need to have the right. As I say, I got on the bandwagon and I'm like, oh yes, we need to get this right. And it's super important. And I also understand that it's part of our fight, but it's not the whole thing.
It's well heard. It lands on me well. It's also part of the reason why, as I read about you, I was so fascinated. You had the first divorce case for LGBT in Florida, and we even say in our introduction of you that was a victory. We have a right to get divorced.
Absolutely, we should be able to get into and out of our relationships, and frankly, we need to have rights as we leave our relationships, so we don't leave everything behind. Yes. So that's and it's
sameness matters. It should be the same for everything.
Absolutely, and I always love how people say, like, oh yeah, straight people say, welcome to marriage. Let's see how you like divorce, and I always think that we'll just renovate the institution of marriage the way we have so many of our neighborhoods, just make it much more fabulous and fair, egalitarian.
Was the divorce fabulous in your representation?
Absolutely, it was. I started doing divorces even before our ban against the freedom to marry was lifted. I had some very fair-minded judges who understood that it was the right thing to do to grant the dissolution of marriage, and I think it allows people to close out a chapter of their lives that is not working.
I love that you've started and ended in the marriage process. I love that soundbite. Let's talk about some of the other things that are really important for legal issues in the community. I met you at a trans conference where you were helping the trans community on something that should be so simple, name change.
Yeah.
We have watched the trans community become the bullseye for the radical right to make
radical wrong, as I say.
Yes, exactly. Radical crazy.
Yes.
My friend Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingalls, and I say that as liberally and silly as I possibly can. But we are seeing the trans community be ground zero for the 2022 midterms. What motivates your actions and to help educate other attorneys and judges to stand up in the rights for the trans community? What's your motivation for that?
We all get beaten up in the alleys for the same reasons. It's not because I'm holding my wife's hand. It's because in some way my gender expression is threatening to people. They don't see me in high heels and full makeup, although because I'm on the television today, I have a little bit more makeup. So I'm perhaps a little more gender conforming today. So whatever. Okay. But otherwise, when I'm not in my lawyer drag, I seriously, we get if we're gender nonconforming, that's threatening to people. Men who are somehow more Nelly, women who are more butch. We are all one in this on this spectrum of gender identity. We all have a gender identity, and for most of us, it does not conform with the gender stereotypes that let's say we were brought up with. Those of us who are not Gen Xers and I'm Gen Xer, Gen Z, whatever this new thing, millennial, whatever. Anyway, the point is that I try to convey to folks that there is a reason that transgender non-binary folks are not only at the forefront of and we're at the forefront of our movement, right, through the first bricks at Stonewall, but also now are the punching bags for the radical wrong, because they are the most vulnerable in our community, even among our own community. Even cis lesbians and cis gay guys just feel like, oh well, that's really not us. That's not those people are not us. They are us. We are all transcending gender.
Why do we not stand up? Why does not the L and the G and the B stand up for the trans community in the degree that you're talking about?
I mean, I think on some level, I mean, maybe to be fair, on some level, it's a lack of familiarity. Perhaps, to be most generous, for very often when I would give talks, I'd say, how many people know a gay person or a lesbian? They'd raise their hand. How many people know a trans person and gender nonconforming? They're like, nobody raises their hand. They don't know. So maybe it's ignorance, but I think it's just good old-fashioned transphobia. I think that a lot of folks think it's not terribly expedient to have to defend this community that they don't necessarily understand, because just the sheer numbers, what is it, like 0.2% of the population is trans? So it's just sheer numbers. People don't have as many folks in their lives that they understand that are trans, which is why, incredible trailblazers like Laverne Cox are so amazing, who've been so out front describing their experience and living their truths and trying to just dispel myths. It's really sad to see the way in which, in this current climate with these trans bans against doctors providing affirming health care and against trans kids playing in sports, to see the way even folks who've been allies in our movement, that for some that's like a bridge too far. And again, that's just based on ignorance. That's based on people not understanding that once you've been on.
So your point is that we've got to educate even in the L and the G and the B of our community.
Yes.
All right, very clear. Something else I wanted to move on that is fascinating to me. We've got marriage. You're now at the forefront of family rights, sperm, eggs, adoption. Tell us a little about your passion there.
The minute that same-gender couples could form relationships, it seemed like they wanted to have babies, right? And in the state of Florida, LGBT people couldn't adopt. There was a law that was passed in 1977 that said that you can't adopt if you're homosexual. And so I was doing work with LGBT folks starting in 1997, as you said in the intro, and immediately folks wanted to figure out ways to be parents. And so, of course, I was doing lots of lesbian donor insemination cases, and that rapidly led to gay guys wanting to become parent. The minute that protease inhibitors and antiretroviral therapies were passed by the FDA and our community started living, they wanted to do this very radical but also very traditional thing of starting to have kids. So guys wanted to start doing surrogacy, and that was the only way for them to become parents in the state of Florida legally, because adoption was not on the table until 2010. Some cases I was also privileged to work on. So it's been again just a journey of a lifetime, being able to help folks become parents. And then also, once the adoption ban was lifted in 2010, it meant that same-gender couples could both be legal parents. So like, imagine my partner and I are raising a child and maybe I gave birth. She's not the legal parent. So literally I could just break up with her and leave and like take the kid, and she was a legal stranger. So once the adoption ban was lifted, we were able to confirm parental rights in those other parents, which was also really amazing and important.
In this area of the legal issues that fall for the LGBTQ community, I'm curious, what did you think when Pete Buttigieg and Chastain came out and the adoption of their child?
I thought it was so perfectly timed. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait for him to run for president again, because now he's got the kids. He's like ready. He's there right out of central casting.
Yeah.
But what actually I have to say, so I don't know if you said this earlier, I do a lot of adoption law. I'm board certified in adoption. My first thought was, how did they get twins? Because twins are like very hard to come by in the adoption universe. So I thought, there's some lucky boys.
I have jokes in my head, but for another time. One last issue that I want to explore with you is I would be remiss in letting you get away and not talk about really, as I frequently have said, a kind of taboo subject in the LGBTQ community, and that is aging. And you are closely involved with SAGE. And tell us a little bit about SAGE and what you do with them.
So I'm the co-chair of the National Board of SAGE, which is Advocacy and Services for LGBT Elders. And it's a 43-year-old New York-based organization with affiliates in 32 states, I believe it is. And we focus on making the world a better, safer place for LGBT older adults.
Why do you think the LGBTQ community has a perceived difficulty with aging or embracement of aging as even a topic in the LGBTQ community?
We're youth obsessed, that's for sure. And I think it's for some, again, to be generous, I think a lot of folks have trouble identifying with older folks because we haven't all been there. I think we can all identify with queer youth because we struggled in our youth and we've all been there. We can think back to our youth and we have this focus on wanting to make the world better for them. But we don't necessarily all identify with older adults because we haven't all gotten there yet. And I think it's a bit of a taboo subject because we all joke. I mean, even you, when you were saying, I'm gonna out you by saying you've been practicing since 1997, like, I'm good with aging. I'm turning 50 in a month and I'm psyched about it. Cindy Brown is here and she's turning 60 in a week, couple days. 5 days. Happy birthday, Cindy Brown. And she's good with it. We're not like, oh, don't say my age. Like, we're psyched to get older, right? Like, we celebrate aging. I feel like, can she come up and talk? So I mean, and I hope that that's something that more folks can wrap their brains around and appreciate that first of all, it's a privilege to age, as we say, beats the alternative. So much knowledge. Experience. Vitality, energy.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Talking about me.
Yes, you are. Listen, it's a heartbreaker. Like the fact that the pioneers who built our community, who got us to where we are so that we could have this beautiful TV show, are not all spending their golden years aging with the dignity that they deserve. Twice as likely to live alone, LGBT elders, 4 times as likely to live without children, not have children. And so there's a lot of social isolation and a lot of discrimination experienced in assisted living facilities and those kinds of things. So that's one of the things that SAGE does that I think is really so important, is does that cultural competency training.
Incredibly important work. Elizabeth, my last related question, of course, if you're here in South Florida and you need legal assistance in any of these areas, of course, to reach out to Elizabeth Schwartz, but probably pretty busy and you might have difficulty. In general, what would you recommend to the community to the process of finding legal counsel?
Sure.
For whatever area of interest.
Right. Well, I mean, thank you. I think that's a great question because folks deserve competent counsel for whatever it is they need. I'm always happy to refer folks out. I do a lot of, the gay ambassador work and providing folks competent counsel. My practice is focused on family formation, estate planning, probate. I'm a big believer in finding a lawyer that stays within their lane and not someone who dabbles, not a door lawyer, so whatever walks in the door. We have some great LGBT bar associations down here. GLLN is here in Fort Lauderdale, the Gay and Lesbian Lawyers Network, and they have a great directory on their website, which I think is gln.org. And then GALA, which is the Gay and Lesbian Lawyers Association in Miami, is affiliated with the Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, and they have a directory. The National LGBTQ Bar Association has a directory on their website, and it doesn't need to be like a gay lawyer. It just needs to be somebody who's competent and that you're going to feel comfortable talking to, and who has experience dealing with your kinds of issues. I think that's super important.
Well, in the 2 years that we've done Queer News Tonight, this is the first time we talked about legal expertise. Now, we talk about everything around the important heart of, as I said, attorneys helping propel our rights. But this is the first conversation we've ever had at Queer News Tonight.
Shame on you.
I know.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about. There really is. There are a lot of issues that our community doesn't understand are intersected. Folks don't understand that reproductive justice is our issue. Just because we may not need to have an abortion, people need to understand that our rights rest on those privacy cases, on the Roe v. Wade, on Casey, these are our issues. trans issues are our issues. And so I would be happy to come back and talk about all of that and more.
I can absolutely guarantee that's going to happen. Elizabeth, thank you very much. Elizabeth Schwartz, a real icon here in South Florida. And be sure and look up SAGE and the senior issues going on in the LGBTQ community. Thank you very much for being with us this evening at Queer News Tonight.
Thanks, Al.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ